Welcome, everyone, to Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. We have a special show for you tonight. We're going to talk about several timely topics. Rutgers football. Number one, we're going to review the 2024 season. It certainly had its ups and downs, exciting moments, disappointing moments. We'll talk about that in great detail, including the injuries, the critical losses, the loss of the defensive coordinator, and we're going to talk about Coach Schiano and assess his performance in 2024. Then we're going to look ahead to 2025. We've got some breaking news, a new co-defensive coordinator for Rutgers that we'll talk about. We're going to talk about the schedule, the recruits, and the expectations. And then finally, we're going to have an in-depth player profile on quarterback Athan Kaliakmanis, the Minnesota transfer who threw for over 2,000 yards this year, the most yards in over a decade for a Rutgers quarterback. It's going to be a great episode, but before we get into those topics, like I said, this is a special show because tonight we're going to introduce the new co-host of Rutgers at the Voice of College Football, Gabriel Pickup, a graduate of Rider University, a passionate Rutgers fan and generally passionate sports fan who's going to add incredible value to the show and to our discussions about Rutgers football moving forward. So, Gabe, welcome to the show. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and I can't wait moving forward to see this channel grow, see the company grow, and see the fan base get more dedicated. So let's get right into it, man. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Go Scarlet Knights. All right, well, let's get right into it. And for those of you who are watching, if you like the show, hit that like and subscribe button. We've also got the link, a StreamYard link in the chat if you want to call in and offer your comments. So we're looking forward to that. All right, so let's dive right into it. Topic number one.
Yes, sir.
The review of the 2024 season. Now, Gabe, I got to tell you, this season really disappointed me, and I'll tell you why. Because when the season started, Rutgers had a senior-laden team, and they had a schedule that was very favorable. But then the injuries hit, and they hit very hard. And so did the critical losses, such that a 4-0 start ultimately turned into a 7-6 season, ending with a 44-41 loss to Kansas State. So what are your thoughts on the 2024 season and how it went?
Well, honestly, I am surprised that you're disappointed about the season because I believe it was a great season, rattled by injuries, but we had some bad losses in the middle of the season that ultimately came back to bite. But throughout the season, what I saw was dedication, drive from those who were healthy. We had a great quarterback, a great way to end the season for our star running back. And although we lost in the bowl 41-44, the defense wasn't quite there, which you would think for seniors, and the physicality would be maybe superior. It wasn't quite that day. But I think it was overall a great season, starting 4-0, going back down to 4-4. But ultimately what we saw was a great season out of Kaliakmanis, and we're thankful. We're lucky. We have another season of great quarterback play, barring any setbacks, and that's something that we haven't had, like you said, in over a decade. With respect to everyone who has played for quarterback for Rutgers, this is overall just a year I'm actually very happy about and optimistic moving forward.
I love this. I love people who disagree with me. It makes for a great discussion. Okay, you make some really, really good points. But when I thought when this season started, I'm a New Jersey native, a Bergen Catholic graduate. I love Rutgers, and I'm thinking this is finally the year where Rutgers breaks through, maybe even goes to the college football playoff.
I hear you.
And we start off 4-0, and that amazing victory over the Huskies of Washington, who were in the national championship game last year with Kalen DeBoer. And then all of a sudden, we decide to go to Lincoln, Nebraska, and only score 7 points. It was terrible. And then against the Wisconsin Badgers, after Wisconsin is dominated at Camp Randall against Alabama, they come in and they crush us 42-10. Then we have, of course, the 35-32 loss to UCLA. But what really killed me this season is that loss to Illinois. We are ahead of Illinois with about 8 seconds left, and they score from midfield on a pass. We have missed tackles. So And when we lost to Kansas State by 3, I thought, oh, what could have been? I'm one of these people who I see the glass half empty sometimes, but you see it half full. So tell me why I'm wrong.
So I have it half full because it was disappointing against Illinois, like you said, allowing 23 points in the fourth quarter. But the thing is, to counter that, allowing 8 points to Illinois through 3 quarters, that's pretty impressive. And it was a stinky fourth quarter, even though we scored 18 points. We did enough offensively, but that's the reason why I'm optimistic, is because a lot of the offense is returning. A lot of the defense is not. We got a new defensive coordinator. Well, we got 2 new defensive coordinators to look out for here. We have Rob Smith coming in, and we have Zach Sparber coming in, and they are the selling point for transfers, recruits. They are the reason that this team can turn into another defensive juggernaut like they have been in years past. And Rob Smith is it's his 3rd stint at Rutgers. He's familiar with the system, familiar with Schiano. The coaching staff is what will help bring this defense back, and the experience is what will help propel the offense even more to the next level, despite losing an amazing running back. So that's why I'm optimistic. I'm glass half full. Not always, but with this team, absolutely.
All right, well, you make some good points. And I see in the comments section, we have Mac Deaver. Good evening, Adam. Finally, someone is standing up to your takes. Take a chill pill, Mac. If you would like to, Mac, if you would like to stand up, don't hide behind the keyboard. Call into the show, and we will discuss it. So, okay, you make good points, but what really upset me was that with that 4-0 start, including that 21-18 win over Washington, I thought that against Nebraska, we had so many silly penalties, couldn't punch the ball in from the 2-yard line on 1st and goal, then came out lifeless against Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Then against UCLA, the defense, whether it's due to injuries or just whatever it was, 35 points to a mediocre UCLA team. And then that Illinois loss, it just seemed to me that we were so close yet so far away. And then to put the icing on the cake, we lose our defensive coordinator, Joe Harizmiak, who was absolutely fantastic. And you mentioned this Rob Smith guy that we'll talk. I don't know who Rob Smith is. You could educate me on that. But at the end of the day, when I look at 2024, I do agree with you that in part, there is a reason for optimism. We did defeat Virginia Tech. We did defeat Washington. Our defense was ranked as one of the best in the country before all the injuries. And there's a lot to be proud of. I just think that there's so much we left on the field, and we could have been a 9 or 10 win team. And that brings me to my last point in this segment, which is, let's talk about Coach Schiano. Now, Coach Schiano, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you. Your first stint at Rutgers, you turned this program around after the horrific Chris Ash era. And you're doing it again, Coach. And, I love you. Much respect to you, one of the best coaches, not the best in Rutgers football history, but
best in recent history.
Best in recent history, absolutely. But, Coach, we still went 7-6. So I'm wondering, Gabe, what do you think of Coach Schiano and his performance this year?
Well, I love Schiano. I love that he was able to elevate Kaliakmanis and the receivers around him. What I like about him is the NFL experience that comes with it, coaching the Bucs in the, I think, 2012, 2014-ish, around there. And what he brings is, at least to this Rutgers program currently, is something we don't have much of, which is league experience that can translate to some of these losses that we took this year, maybe turning into wins next year. So I'm happy. It seems like there's not really much of a hot seat right now at the time. It seems like everyone's content with maybe not the result of the year, but at least with how Schiano is as a coach. Some of these losses I'm looking at, the 7-14 at Nebraska. You mentioned Illinois. You mentioned the Bowl. He's done well enough for the schemes to work for the majority of the game. What I think it comes down to is these players getting experience on offense, and that really will help this program thrive, because the wins we got were mostly blowouts against some teams that are not even all that bad. I mean, Akron, 49-17, regardless of how Akron is, that's a damn good win. 44-7 to start the year. I mean, I know that seems like a year ago at this point, but I mean, the hot start, if we can take that hot start and start hot again next year, that's That's what gets me excited about Coach Shiano, his ability to light a fire under these guys, you know what, and keep the dice rolling. So I'm happy about Shiano, and I'm happy about the defensive coordinators coming in because there's two of them, and I'm happy that the offense can keep the dice rolling, like I mentioned with the staff.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'll agree with you, Coach Shiano. If I was grading Rutgers this year, the team's overall performance, I would give it a B minus. I would give Coach Shiano a B. But you know what? Coach Shiano, this discussion is not going to be complete until you come on the show. We're going to need you to come on this show. We're here to support Rutgers football. We are Rutgers fans. We need you to come on the show because we're building this channel, which will be the voice of Rutgers football. And we look forward to having you on and hearing your thoughts. Okay, so
by the way,
what'd you say?
I'll give him an A minus. By the way, I think that B minus is fair, but I'll give him more of an A minus for how Shiano performed.
So A minus. Yep.
I guess to maybe dispute some of your takes, he might have to come on. Yeah, I look forward to it. I'm sure it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, Coach, and some of those players coming back for 2025, we want to see you on here, and that starts with you, Athan. We want to see you on the show, talk to you about your good season and what your thoughts are going forward. And that brings us into the next segment. Let's look ahead to 2025, and there's only one place to start for that, and that is the breaking news today. New co-defensive coordinator Rob Smith, who will be joining Zach Sparber, formerly from Bergen Catholic, as the co-defensive coordinator. Now, Gabe, I got to turn this over to you. I have no idea who Rob Smith is. I don't know who he is, why he is. Is he good? Is he bad? Educate me.
So the answer to your question is he has both good and bad history with this program. He's been here 09 to 12. 2012, he was the defensive coordinator under Kyle Flood. Prior to that, he was just a not special teams coach, an assistant coach. My apologies. And so they saw enough to elevate him. And obviously, since 2012, he has stuck around that role. However, the past 2 years, he's been at Penn State, working as an analytics coordinator. So this is a promotion in terms of position, but program wise, not quite yet, just because Penn State was in the playoffs. And, you know, they did have an amazing season despite how it ended. So he was also defensive coordinator under Shiano 2020 to 2021, and he's worked for Shiano 4 different times. He's got familiarity with the program and a lot of familiarity with Shiano. And bringing in Zach Sparber as co-defensive coordinator, linebackers coordinator as well. This is I think defensively going to elevate the program despite losing Harasimiak, in my opinion. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's very encouraging. And for Rob Smith and Zach Sparber, you got 2 people returning on defense. So you got your work cut out for you. But as we will talk about, Coach Shiano, with his recruiting class being ranked overall 34, composite ranked 31, transfer ranked 46, he has brought in some people, some transfers on that defensive line that's going to bring size, speed, and physicality. So I think you're right. The future on the defense looks bright. But that all sounds good until I look at the schedule for next year. And, of course, we start out with Ohio and Miami at home, then Norfolk State, which I didn't know they had a football program. But when I look at the 2025 schedule, here's what I see. I see that Rutgers has to go to Columbus, Ohio to face the defending national champions. They're going to have the Nittany Lions at home. And speaking of the Nittany Lions, Drew Aller, don't throw an interception with 30 seconds left. Oh, that's another show. They're going to be going at Illinois, home against the Ducks of Illinois, at Washington, at Minnesota, home against the Hawkeyes of Iowa. So they've got a tough schedule. So my question for you is this. Well, how are we going to navigate this schedule?
See, navigation, it's tough to know without our defense coming back. And the problem with that, by the way, before I dive into this topic, Rider University also does not have a football program. We have not had a football program for 70 years now because someone posed as an 18-year-old and they were 30. So I know a thing or two about not having a football program, but navigating through this schedule, it's going to be difficult without knowing what our defense is looking like. Thankfully, we do have at least 2 guys coming back and not 0. But the problem is they play so far apart on defense that you can't really call them a tandem. I mean, Jordan Thompson's on the defensive line and Kaj Sanders, free safety. They're pretty far apart, so they're not going to be a dynamic duo of any sort. It's going to be about the guys around them. Navigating through the schedule, starting off, incredibly difficult. At least, I mean, it's at home, so it's going to be more of like a let's go and have fun, see what this team is made of sort of game. Keep it competitive, see what this program can do going forward, what works and what doesn't. And so you look down the line here, Norfolk State, hopefully a W. Again, it's tough without knowing what our roster looks like. But based on our coordinators, I'm going to say that is a W. I mean, ultimately, we'll have to see if I'm proven right or wrong. Minnesota, going to be difficult. I mean, Washington, going to be difficult, but we beat them this year. So we'll have to see. There's not really a way to navigate this. It all just comes down to which guys for these schools are transferring out, which guys are they getting, and what's our roster going to look like? It's such a big unknown. Our offense, thankfully, is a little more well-known because we have our starting 2 wide receivers for the next 2-3 years. We have a quarterback coming back next year that can elevate into potentially an NFL player for all we know. So it's just going to have to be kind of a guessing game with how we do. First week is just a let's see what works and what doesn't kind of week, though, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you, but I think I have some good news to fill in some of those gaps on defense. Because we look at that recruiting class for 2025, current rank 34, composite rank 31. We've got 25 3-stars. We've got 2 4-stars. Now, we know Rutgers suffered a lot of injuries on defense, but they've got Daryl Jabome and Muhammad Toure coming back who are from an ACL injury. They're going to anchor that linebacking core. Now, of course, like you were stating, you know, Aaron Lewis, Wesley Bailey, Keontae Hamilton, Troy Rainey, all gone. Okay, but Coach Schiano has made some incredible additions to that defensive line and the secondary. Bradley Weaver from Ohio University, 6'4", 262, 44 tackles, 15 for loss, and 8.5 sacks for Ohio. And against Syracuse, had 5 tackles and 1 sack. Eric O'Neill from James Madison, defensive end, 52 tackles, 18.5 for loss, 13 sacks, and an interception coming to the Scarlet Knights. And, of course, from the thundering herd of Marshall, Jacoby Henderson, 5'11", 191, 2 years of eligibility remaining. He's going to be at the cornerback position. And we've got Jet Elad from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Las Vegas, one of my favorite towns. Love those slots. 6'1". Oh, you should go. It's wonderful until you lose all your money. Jet Elad from UNLV going to occupy the safety position. 84 tackles, 5 for loss, 1 sack, 1 interception. And
their music to my ears.
Yeah, I mean, this is great stuff. And then we've got Daryl Dengoa from James Madison, 6'2", 290 at defensive tackle, 28 tackles, 6 for loss last year. And from South Florida, a team that challenged the Crimson Tide earlier in the season, Doug Blue Eli, 6'2", 315, 37 tackles the last 2 seasons, 5 for loss. And the last person from the Nittany Lions of Penn State. And once again, Drew Aller. What are you doing? Throwing that interception.
Is that synonymous now? Drew Aller to Penn State losing?
Yeah, Drew. What are you doing? Take the game to overtime. I mean, geez, I'm rooting for you, and then you disappoint me like this. Cam Miller from Penn State, 6', 183, 4 starts for Penn State, 27 tackles, 5 pass breakups in 16 games. So we're going to see a new defense, but that defense is going to have physicality, speed, and experience. So to your point, it's going to depend on, the players and who we get on defense. I think we're looking good.
And I think for the most part, with all these transfers and new players, it's going to be, can you buy into this system, this new system under Rob Smith and, of course, Schiano with the final say? It's going to be, can you buy into this completely new system from where you've came from? And if the answer is yes, which I think it will be, at least to start off, and you got to look at it optimistically against Ohio, against Washington, etc. I think that they can elevate this program, and they got to believe in themselves. They've made it so far through their college career and high school careers, believing in yourselves and having a belief system. And I think that really matters, especially with a completely new defense. So the chemistry is going to come naturally. It's just a matter of believing in the guys that are telling you what to do out there.
Yeah, you make a great point. This Rutgers team, one of the things that I think I would say to recruits and to our current players is that we're building something special here. And you could be part of the first team in Rutgers history that goes to college football playoff and amazingly could win a national championship. And if you build a foundation where the players are resilient, they believe in themselves, and they have that drive, anything is possible. I will say this, though, for next year, I'm not so focused on the record, because what I think, and which we'll talk about in our next segment, is that this 2025 season is a bridge to 2026, which is going to be the year where I think they can make the playoff and be competitive on a national level. But before we get to that segment,
I was going to ask what makes you think that, and I would chime in myself, but let's hear it.
I am going to talk about that in just 1 second when I get to the 5 commits that Rutgers has for 2026, including 3 4-star recruits.
Sexy.
One of whom Bill Belichick is trying to steal. But Bill, stay in North Carolina. Go away. And as far as next year goes, I will say this. I know what the game plan is to beat the Nittany Lions. Rutgers players, if you're watching, in the secondary, just stand there. Drew Aller will throw it to you at some point. Trust me. Just catch it. You'll win the game.
It might take 3.5 quarters, but it'll happen eventually.
Hey, patience is a virtue.
I mean, I honestly think he should have declared this year, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I know he should have too.
Terrible way to end the season, and he would never get that taste out of his mouth. But I think this is the stock that is highest in this present moment. It's now.
Yeah, and it's a weak quarterback class too. I keep hearing Jalen Milroe is going to go in the first round. Get lost.
I think the only solidified quarterback from this class is Cam Ward. I would love to buy into Shedeur because of his father and because of the system in Colorado improving. But to me, it's just Cam Ward has the fundamentals. Shedeur has them at a college level, but I don't know if it translates.
I agree with you. And, Cam Ward, he is a legit quarterback, and I think could be a solid starter in the NFL. Cam Ward should be disappointed, though, with his Miami team. They decided not to play defense this year. They just decided they weren't going to play. And that 41-38 loss to Syracuse, it was rough. But it was certainly a college football season to remember. And one, like you said, when you look back at Rutgers, there is a lot to be positive about. It's wonderful to have Coach Schiano as a coach. And like we were just talking with those recruits that are coming in from the portal on that defensive line, that secondary, the future still looks bright. And if recruits want to be part of a special football program that can do something for the first time in Rutgers history, make the playoff, even make a national championship, it'll be something special.
And that's the selling point, is we have the crew. Yeah. Now, we can make history. You couldn't always say that. We can make history. Do you want to be a part of it? That's the selling point.
Yes. I mean, I want to be a part of history too. The problem is I'm almost 50 years old, so history has passed me by. But for these players, they're young. They can do something special. Like I tell my students on my mock trial team, you have the opportunity to do something real special, something you'll remember for the rest of your lives. And I hope that the trajectory continues to go upward. I think it will. The last segment I want to talk about, and this might be controversial because I have a controversial opinion on this. Let's talk about our good friend, Athan Kaliakmanis. Now, Athan, we'd like you to come on the show too because you're going to be the signal call for Rutgers next year. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the season this year, how you're developing, and what you expect for 2025.
What I love is you have a lot of opinions, Athan, and I don't think you're afraid to express them. So this would be a perfect place to do it.
Yeah, because Athan, this is going to be the show for Rutgers football, and we want to highlight the players who are going to take Rutgers to the next level. You're one of them. We need you here. And Coach Shiano, we need you here too. So, Athan, apparently Athan liked the state of Minnesota at a certain point, decided to go into the cold to play for the Golden Gophers. I don't know what a Golden Gopher is, but yeah, it's a good school. So, Athan, yeah, well, I was in Minnesota once, but I almost got frostbite, so I didn't go back again. But Athan, a little bit of a rocky year at Minnesota, transfers to Rutgers, wins the starting job. So here's my take on Athan Kaliakmanis. Number one, Athan has an NFL arm. He can really sling the ball. Number two, Athan has grit. When plays break down, he's got heart. He's not afraid to run it. Did that several times against USC in a very physical game. He's the kind of person, he's got the heart of a champion. Where I question Athan a bit is the decision-making and the progressions. Because what we saw was inconsistency in various games this year where the passing per game was fairly low, interceptions were a bit higher. And it just seemed to me that when a play breaks down or the pocket isn't protecting him as well, he can sometimes make some bad decisions or not go through his progressions enough or miss receivers. So when I see Athan, I think at this point, there's a lot of good. There's some stuff to work on. Is he going to make it to the next level and be an elite quarterback? What do you think, Gabe?
I think he has all the potential to do so. I think your criticism is fair, first off. 54% completion rate. It's middle of the pack, a little lower than you would hope it would be. But the thing is, 2,700 yards, that's his college high, going back to the Golden Gophers. 18-7 touchdown interception ratio is, I mean, the touchdowns are, and that's just touchdown passing. Like you said, he can get creative and scramble too when the pocket collapses. 122.7 rating. I love that. That's solid to me. That's really solid. And so, like I said, there were games where the offense was really there. And when it was there, except for, against UCLA and Illinois, I mean, this club was winning convincingly when the offense was there. I think his senior year, I think he can and will consistently bring it like he did week 1, week 2 against Illinois, against UCLA. And I don't think I mean, he's going to come on here and he's going to say that, and he's going to say he knows what he needs to do. I think he can do it. And I think he genuinely means it when he comes on here and says that he will be the quarterback of the future after he's done with this program, and he will get a shot in the league. That's my take. And I believe that's true. He will get a shot in the league. I don't know what if a practice squad, he will play in NFL action. Because to me, a quarterback like him, his play, it's a lot less like Tim Tebow and a lot more like Tua. And Tua's game translated. It took a while, but it translated. People were kind of concerned that he was a scrambler. Now he's in the league. He's not scrambling at all, and his arm is doing the magic. And I think Kaliakmanis, you can bring it to the league with scrambling, with passing. And I don't think you need to lose either to thrive in the league. I think you'll be a good hybrid quarterback. The question is, are you willing to work for it? And I believe the answer is yes. Now, what you have to do is prove me correct and prove his criticisms wrong down the line. I think you can.
That's a great analysis. I agree with a lot of what you said. Very insightful. So, I see it similarly to you. I think Athan's going to go one of two ways. He is either going to go to the next level by improving his decision-making, his accuracy in certain situations, and going through his progressions patiently, although expeditiously. But he's got the tools. He's got the arm, and he's got the heart.
And okay? I believe there's a difference between being too patient and being smart. And I think he's smart when the pocket collapses. I don't think he's in the Caleb Williams type of situation where people are screaming, get rid of the ball or throw it away. I think he's aware of his blind side collapsing, and that's what I really like watching him play.
Yeah, and even though I'm not a college football coach, I'm going to give some advice to Athan right now. 2 pieces of advice for free. Number 1, throw the ball away, for God's sake. Stop trying to make a play. You throw unnecessary interceptions, raises my blood pressure, and I don't need that. Number 2, take off a little bit more. Okay? When that pocket collapses, there's a lot of open lanes there for you. I think, Athan, you are going to be a stud next year. I think you're going to be an elite quarterback, and I agree with Gabe that you have a future in the NFL. But before that future starts, we're going to need you and Coach Schiano to come on the show. In fact, both of you at the same time, because this is the place for Rutgers football, and you are Rutgers football. Well, Gabe, speaking of that, we have someone who has called into the show. It is not Mac who made that comment about standing up. Mac still remains silent, but we have our good friend Austin Williams.
That's his right to do so.
Absolutely. Well, I know.
Well, what's up, fellas? Happy Tuesday.
Austin? And Mac is in the background too, who will be on next. So I spoke too soon. Austin, great to have you on the show. What's on your mind?
So a couple of things I wanted to address. First off, congratulations, Gabe. Welcome to Rutgers Voice of College Football.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Happy to be here.
And a couple of things I wanted to ask you guys is, you were talking about Kaliakmanis, and I feel like sometimes he gets overjudged. And what I mean by that is the quarterback is at the position where whether you win, lose, or draw, they get the harshest criticism. And I feel like with Kaliakmanis, he has shown at times to be a really good quarterback, but he's also shown at times to be a not very good quarterback. But it seems like in the games that he plays really well and Rutgers loses, you still hear the boo birds, so to speak, criticize him. Why is that? Is it just
Jalen Hurts treatment? It's a shame that college quarterbacks are judged the same way NFL quarterbacks are, because they're over 18, but they're still kids, and you don't realize that until you get out of college, that you still think, with all due respect to college players, a little more childish than when you're out of college. And obviously most of the fans are in college, but there's a lot of upset alumni that forget what it's like to be in college as a quarterback and a student of the game and of the university. And I think he has great games and losses, and he gets that treatment of a good quarterback in the NFL losing, such as Jalen Hurts or Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs when his defense is the main problem. And it's just a shame, because Kaliakmanis is the last person to blame on the team for any loss. I mean, we've had one or two examples of him maybe playing poorly, Nebraska, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
But we put up 41 points in a bowl game that we should have won. I don't think it comes down to him. And there's always going to be fans that criticize him, media that criticize him. But I guess to answer your question, I just think that people forget the difference between college ball and professional ball. That's why I think he gets judged, even in losses that he's good in.
Well, I think you make some really good points. Austin, here's what I think. I think college football fans of a particular team hate two things. They absolutely hate inconsistency, and they hate stupid interceptions. And I think that Kaliakmanis this year was inconsistent. When you show flashes of greatness and then you revert to mediocrity, fans hate that, because they know what you are capable of and they know what the team is capable of. And when you fall short, I think that frustrates fans. And I think he just threw some very, very bad interceptions at times, which is why I keep saying, Athan, throw it away, okay? Come on the show. You can throw me away. Just throw things away, and we would avoid those throws. So that's my thought on Athan Kaliakmanis. Now, whether he's going to improve or stay the same, I think he's going to improve, but I do think you raised some valid concerns.
I think it's funny that we switched roles there, and I broke it down psychologically. You broke it down analytically.
Well, because I remember talking to Gabriel about Adam with this on the post-game show in the bowl game.
Yeah.
And I even asked Adam, I was like, Rutgers put up 41 points. This wasn't on Kaliakmanis whatsoever. And a lot of that's concerning because he played a really good game. They put up 41 points, but the defense gave up 44. Mm-hmm. Normally, as an offense, you put 41 points up, you're going to win 90% of your ball games.
Yes.
Like, is that a concern for you, knowing that, hey, our offense can get going, but our defense also gives up this many points as well? Is that concerning for you?
To me, it's not a concern because everyone but two left the defense this year because of being a senior. So it's nice that no one transferred from the starting lineup of the two, because it kind of builds a culture that the guys are going to stay here when they commit here. So to me, the defense this year, especially the second half of the year, kind of throw the season out and work on next year. The offense, with receivers such as Ian Strong, KJ Duff, that are young, just getting started, they're going to improve. They're already starters. That's what helps me be more optimistic about next year is their status, and Kenny Fletcher coming back too. So to me, the offensive weapons are going to keep this team consistent, and the defense, it's going to have to buy in, like I mentioned earlier in the show, to a new system. But they're all new here. They don't know about the somewhat toxic defense last year when it mattered most. So that burden's lifted off their shoulders. So I'm not concerned.
Yeah, and I think Austin, the injuries really hurt Rutgers defense last year, but it also highlighted a problem with Rutgers defense is that they lack depth.
Yes.
And that is going to be a problem because, as the defense gets worn down over the course of a game, what you saw against Illinois, what you saw against Kansas State, giving up a lot of points in that fourth quarter, I think Shiano's done a good job of recruiting people from the portal to really shore up that defense, but depth remains a concern for me.
Yeah. And I would also say another thing to add to that is the physicality, too. I've noticed Rutgers needs some more beef on the defensive line. And, Adam, I know you've mentioned it sparingly in some of your past Rutgers lives, but physicality and beef on the defensive line. Because especially in the Big Ten, when you play the Penn States and you play Michigans, the teams that want to beat you up, ground and pound, I think that was another big issue for Rutgers that bit them in the butt later on when the injuries started happening.
Yeah. On the defensive line, you are 100% right. Rutgers is too small on the defensive line. They need a defensive line like Clemson. They need a defensive line like Texas. They need physicality where they're going to win in the trenches and blow people off the ball. So for you Rutgers defensive linemen, there's two things I want you to do until the season starts. Go to McDonald's and go to the weight room. Both.
Dirty bulk. That's what you're saying, huh?
That's right. You're right. We need size.
See, that's my problem is the compliments you give the defense are about their character rather than their performance on the field. Look at Jordan Thompson returning from his redshirt junior year. You look at Kaj Sanders, maturity very much there for being a freshman, but that's my problem is complimenting these guys based on their characters and the fact that you'd want to be around them, great people, but the performance, especially later on in the season, in the bowl game, making it that Kaliakmanis is the scapegoat, it's just got to be better on the field.
Mm-hmm. And another thing, too, going back to the Illinois game, that's where a defensive line would have came in handy. Because you see a lot of these great teams, what are they able to do in the clutch moments? They're able to dial up, the defense coordinators are able to dial up the blitzes, get home, get pressure, and force the quarterback off the spot. And I just feel like at times Rutgers wasn't able to do that in the clutch moments. And Illinois was one of the biggest standouts. I was like, oh my goodness, why aren't you dialing up some blitzes here? Why are you just sitting back and playing coverage?
Yep. I mean,
all right, so Austin, you raised a great point. I'm so glad you said this. Apart from the fact that Rutgers needs more size on the defense, their schemes need to be smarter. For God's sakes, it's 4th and 6 or 4th and 7 with like 8 seconds left. Why are you blitzing? Drop 8, rush 3 for the level. Maybe I should be a college football coach, as a matter of fact. What are you doing with that? Explain to me the reasoning behind that.
It's like the Jets Raiders all over again, Adam.
Oh, yes.
I'm a Jets fan. Oh, Lord.
I remember that.
Are you talking about the Derek Carr throw that Greg Williams had a man on in the final play?
Oh, I didn't mean to bring that up to you, Gabriel. You had it rough.
Where you rush 2 and Jalen Milroe has an hour and a half to throw, but Jesus, come on.
No.
and that's one of the things too that really like irritates me when I'm watching Rutgers, because I'm like I get it. Like sometimes your talent doesn't match up to the other team, but like you said, Adam, scheme. Like you need to be able to dial up the blitz when you need it, but you also need to be able to have the studs back there to cover when you need to, and they just didn't have it in that Illinois game, especially.
So do you think that fell more on Sciano or Harasimiak?
I think that falls on more of the defensive coordinator because he's in charge of the defense. Now, I know sometimes the coaches will take over the defensive play calling. That's not unusual. But Sciano, he doesn't escape this part of the blame pie. He gets some of it too, because he should have been in the headset being like, hey, I don't like what I see. Let's change it or let's use this timeout.
He does have the power to veto. So I'm
He also gets the blame. The show has been on for 5 months for still not coming on. Coach Sciano, we're waiting and we're getting impatient. Now, what I will say about this, Austin, is this. So when they were on the 50-yard line or whatever it was, I think what Sciano was thinking and Harismiak would think was this. If we rush 3, they're going to hit a 12 to 15-yard pass and kick a field goal to win it. So we need to get pressure. What happened was, though, they didn't get pressure. And when he completed that, I think it was a post route, the defensive backs were just out of position. The angles were terrible. But I think the reason they blitzed is because they were worried he was going to hit a 15-yard slant or something and kick the field goal.
And that's one of them, too. And we all can relate to this as fans watching it, because we always think, oh, we would have done this, we would have done this better. My thing is, in those situations, if you blitz and the quarterback just makes a better throw, you live with it. But if you make a not so smart play calling on defense, and that's what cost you the game, yeah, I'm going to be a little ticked off, because I'm like, if it's one of those things where they happen to scramble out of it and find the man 50 yards down the field, you just have to live with that. Just a better play call. But in that situation, that was just bad play calling on Rutgers' side. No offense to Rutgers, but that was just bad play calling on their end.
You know what I would have done if I was the DC? I would have had 4 down linemen, 4 linebackers, 1 safety, and man. And I think with that, they would have taken away the middle. And they may have gotten to the quarterback. But like you said, when something works, you're a genius. When it doesn't, everybody thinks you're an idiot. So it's just, that's how it goes in sports.
Mm-hmm. And the second thing I want to touch on for I skedaddle out of here is this upcoming year. I was listening to you, Adam, and Gabriel, how you both had different ends of the spectrum. Gabriel was more of he's seen the half glass full, and you kind of seen it half empty. Going into this year, obviously we still got a long way to go. We got spring training and all that. Like, what is your real expectations for Rutgers? Even with that schedule, can they win 8-9 games, or is that asking too much from what we know so far?
I think they can. What 8-9 games? That's I have no idea. But I just think a lot of the past year, it's just been about luck. Unfortunately, more than blame, it's been about being unlucky. And with a new personnel defensively for the most part. I really think, look, we're not going to win week 1. To me, that's really the trial run, so to say. So I expect to start 0-1 from there. I believe, we can win like 8 of 10. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule now. Oregon, that's probably a loss. Illinois, let's get some revenge on them, right? November 1st, get some sweet revenge on them. But I really think the offense is going to remember the failures, and they're going to be able to say, at least schematically, this is what worked in weeks 12, 13, 14. This is what didn't work weeks 5 through 7. It's about assessing the year, which is it's what we did the first segment of the show after introduction. Of course, it's about assessing the previous year. That's why you bring in new personnel to assess what didn't work from a new perspective. That's why I'm so optimistic, is because it's a new perspective. Harismiak, he very talented mind, very talented brain. Starting may be the best thing for this program. bringing in 2 fresh minds to assess the defense with the new cast of guys. That's why I'm so optimistic.
You make some good points. And as far as Charismiak goes, you know what my message is to you? Get lost. You're the head coach of the University of Massachusetts now, huh? UMass is a basketball school. You're finished. You'll regret that decision. What I would say is this. I think, Austin, that 2025 is going to come down to one game, and it's going to be against the Iowa Hawkeyes. I think that Rutgers is going to be 3-0, and that Iowa game is going to be a crossroads. Are they going to be the same old Rutgers, or are they going to show they can be competitive? I'm looking for a similar season, about 7-6. I do think, though, that 2026 could be the magical year because of the recruits we're getting now, and for 26, and because of a more favorable schedule in 26. So I see 25 as a bridge year, not as the year where we break through.
So 2020 we make the playoffs?
26, I think we have a chance to make the playoffs. Well, I'll be 51.
And I got to say this too, Adam. That's a great point you brought up, the Iowa game, because there's always one game, no matter what team you root for, there's always that one game that's like that crossroads game where it kind of defines your season. And it's kind of interesting that Iowa is that for Rutgers next year. Like, that's the game that will either make or break your year.
Yeah. The game for Rutgers this year was Nebraska.
Oh, I was saying Illinois. That was symbolic of the season.
You could argue Illinois too, but I think Nebraska, when we went in there, we should have won that game. We could not punch it in from the 2-yard line, just like Texas couldn't punch it in from the 1 against Ohio State. Terrible mistakes. When we're 3-0 and we have Iowa in Piscataway, we have to win that game. If we don't, could be a 6-6 season. Could be even 5-7. I suspect it'll be very similar to this year, but I suspect the bowl game will be a victory leading into a magical 2026 season. And Coach Schiano, when you're on this show, I suspect you will agree with me.
Hey, if they're 5-7, Schiano's probably not coming back after. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's interesting, Gabriel, because I've talked to some Rutgers fans, a lot of them, including Adam. Like, some Rutgers fans say Schiano could do no wrong. He could go 4-8, and they love him to death. But then there's other Rutgers fans like Adam who expect 10 wins and a championship culture.
That's right.
I see the championship culture developing. It's just my opinion on him would drastically change if, with an offense as stacked as it will be next year and a completely new defense, this team has a losing record. It's inexcusable. So my opinion on him is through the roof right now. But if we have a losing year, I mean, granted, injuries happen. If we're super injured and we have a losing year and it's somehow excusable, I understand, because bridge year regardless. But a losing year after 2 back-to-back winning years, bowl appearances, winning one, losing one tragically, I don't think that he could come back after going 5-7, especially 4-8.
Well, Gabe, you raised an interesting point, because this may be an unconventional take, but I think that Coach Schiano, certainly one of the best coaches in Rutgers football history, a fantastic person and coach, no question. But I think Coach Schiano was actually the transition to the next coach. I think Coach Schiano is going to build this program into something very solid that the next coach is going to take to the next level, because he is, he is, in my opinion, going to stay maybe 4 or 5 more years. But I think what his role is to bring Rutgers back to national relevance like he did in his first stint. But then when he hands it over, he's going to hand over a program that's solid in recruiting, performance, and record. So I think it's a 10-year plan for Rutgers, and Schiano is a critical middle piece. I don't think he's the end point.
So Austin will appreciate this based on his picture, but you're saying he's Mark Jackson and not Steve Kerr.
Yes. And go ahead, Gabe.
I was just going to say I'm not sure. I didn't have a crazy analysis, but go on.
I just wanted to say the thing is, and I kind of think a lot of Adam with this, but important thing for me when it comes to coaches is you got to have a culture built in. And if you have a culture built in, ready to go, and have that championship mentality, you can succeed. And I feel like with Rutgers, they're getting there, but it's not quite there because they've had games like the Washington game. This is a perfect example of Shiano. Big game, Friday night, blackout, Piscataway, the building's full. They get a big win against the team who went to the national title game the year before. Now, I get it, it's not the same team. It's not like the NFL, but then they have a letdown a week later. And then they they kind of do that. And it's kind of like, you got to build that culture. You got to instill, hey, got a big win, 24 hours, let's enjoy it. Let's move on to Nebraska, Wisconsin, whoever's next.
Yeah, it's just tough to say that was their peak when they beat Michigan State 41-14, you know? Like, they slumped hard after that. It was the top of a peak, but I don't think that was their peak. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think, Gabe, you're right. And I think, Austin, it goes back to what I said about what frustrates fans. When you see the capability of a team, like beating Washington at Shea Stadium, change the name of the stadium, for God's sake. But when you see them beating the Huskies and then losing 42-10 to Wisconsin, that's what frustrates fans. It's the inconsistency. When you see Kaliakmanis throwing some amazing passes with that very strong arm, but then throwing some terrible interceptions, people at Rutgers are sick and tired of being mediocre. That's been our history. We are not patient anymore, and that's what I think is the source of the discontent.
And here's the thing. Rutgers, this is the most perfect I thought it was ever going to align for Rutgers. They had a nice, soft schedule to some extent. You had those games in there that you're like, okay, the trap games, like every team does. But I'm like, this Rutgers can win 10 games this year. And maybe they could have been the Indiana. But oh no, Rutgers had to Rutgers it.
Yeah. You're right, Austin. I totally agree. And you make amazing comments. Anything else? Because we've got two callers that have been waiting patiently.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, Adam, good luck. Hopefully Rutgers can start winning some more. And I appreciate you guys, and thank you for all you do.
Well, we appreciate you, man, and thanks so much for calling in.
Here's the 10 wins.
All right. Thanks to Austin for that great call. Please call in again. Now, we have two more callers. We have Mac and Ryan. And Mac and Ryan have called in before. They are both fans of the Georgia Bulldogs. So I'm going to bring them on together to explain why they remain fans of the Bulldogs after that horrific loss to the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Mac, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I appreciate your comments that someone's finally standing up to my takes. I'll tell you, I have another take that you guys aren't going to like. They hire a co-defensive coordinator, Rob Smith. His first name is spelled with 2 B's. Who does that?
That's
red flag.
I agree.
Adam,
Maybe he has a last name, but not a first name.
Adam, I think you definitely ride up there to Piscataway and just really voice your concern about how this guy spells his name.
Why? Well, you know what? That's a low on the list of my other concerns. But, what are your thoughts about Rutgers? Have you guys finally come around to supporting the Scarlet Knights?
Support, no, but they're kind of like that little kid who, always get talked about, and so you kind of, start feeling bad for, so you want them to succeed. But listen, you wanted to talk about depth earlier.
Yeah.
I urge you to you want talk about you want the defensive depth of a Georgia, of a Clemson. Go listen to Shane Beamer's post-game conference from 2021 after Georgia beat the living crap out of South Carolina. And that's what depth is. When he's saying that our backups are 5 stars. We can put in a backup nose guard who's 6'6", 320 pounds, and we don't miss a beat. That's what Rutgers needs to strive for. I'm not saying go get 4 or 5 stars out of a class. But you talk about blitzing. Why aren't you blitzing on those crucial 3rd and 4th downs? It's because your guys are tired, and you have nobody you can put in that you trust to run the package.
Yeah,
I hear you. The only problem is with these 5 stars being the backups to the backups is we're not going to have a guy like Deion Sanders fall on our laps if 2025 isn't our year. It's got to progress. The only way that we would be able to have something like that would be, a Rutgers alumni's kid joins the program, and that guy had a very successful NFL career. So you see these people hopping on the bandwagon. But outside of that, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a foundation. There's a difference between having a secure tenure and getting cocky. And right now, I think that Schiano has a secure tenure. He's not ahead of himself. So that depth will come, in my opinion. But it's going to take a year, definitely 2 years before we're all the way there.
Sounds like we're really praying for the McCourty twins to have kids fast.
That wouldn't be. I mean, within realm, within realm possibility.
But
Yeah, that depth is something we discussed last week at length about Rutgers recruiting, how they need to start getting within the state of New Jersey more and not letting those Bergen Catholic kids escape to the UGAs.
Mac,
Mac,
you are 100% right. I am so sick and tired of the Taiwan Malones going to Ole Miss. We have running backs going to Nebraska, Ohio State. Jean-Baptiste went to Ohio State. All of our top Bergen Catholic players are going, and I graduated from there in 1993. That's over 30. Anyway, so our top players are getting taken out of state to the elite Division I schools. If we're going to have depth starts at home.
Yep.
And it has to Bergen Catholic, Don Bosco Prep, okay? And I think the message to the recruits should be Rutgers is the only football program where you have the opportunity to do something that has never been done. Win a national championship, develop, play in the NFL, start from day one. If that's the message, I think that as you're seeing with the 2025 and 2026 excellent recruiting classes, if that resonates, Rutgers has a shot, but depth is going to be the key.
Yeah, realistically, the pitch is you can do it next year, even if we're talking if we're sitting here talking and knowing it's not going to happen next year. But the realistic goal is if you commit here, you can win by the time your senior year is up. That's the pitch.
A name that that you brought was Jordan Thomas, number one player out of New Jersey last year, 6'5", 310, went to Don Bosco, and he decided he wanted to go all the way down to Athens, Georgia. I mean, there's those guys. You've got we talked about this ad nauseum last week. Mac, Adam, and I did about keeping the talent within the state.
Yeah.
That could help you so much. New Jersey has talent. The Northeast has talent and not a lot of good schools to recruit out of.
Exactly. There's no real powerhouse in New Jersey that'll steal our recruits. It's out of state.
So if you keep the kids home, you have a lot better chance of winning it as if you have to go down to California and get some 2-star because all the good players out of New Jersey's gone.
You know what else? So there's nothing in state that'll steal there's no program in state that'll steal. Piscataway is not. It's a lot closer to New York than it is Pennsylvania. There's no big schools in New York that'll steal outside of Syracuse, maybe Buffalo, but that's far away. That's really far away. So nothing in New York City that's going to steal. Nothing Westchester County, anything like that.
And and we have our secondary is going to be strengthened next year by a transfer from the Nittany Lions of Penn State. We got to start competing with Penn State because, look, what Rutgers needs is they need depth, and the depth begins in New Jersey. But the other thing they need is this. They need to win a big game on a national stage. Elite players want to go to programs where they win, they develop, and they play in the NFL and are successful in life. Rutgers has to win that game at Nebraska. They have to win that game against Kansas State. And this year, they have to beat the Hawkeyes of Iowa. And it's so doable. Iowa has no offense, has never wanted one, and it's going to be in Piscataway. So I feel like to get over the hump, it's not just the message, it's also the results. And they have to win that big game this year.
Got to have the viral moments of happiness in the locker room, of Gatorade poured on a coach in an interview. You're right. That's what attracts players.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, you go with Syracuse. It's what Syracuse did is exactly what Rutgers needs to do. Go find you a really good coordinator who is also a top recruiter, and just give him a blank check.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I also want to say this, and I wonder what you guys think about this. So you talk about Athens, Georgia. What a wonderful college town. So Georgia loses to Notre Dame this year in a game I think they should have won. I think it was uncharacteristic mistakes, that kickoff return. But if I'm a Georgia fan, the way I approach it is, we lost to Notre Dame, but we know next year we're right back in the thick of things. With Rutgers, a lot of people are saying, oh, this was Rutgers' year. This was the time the schedule was favorable. We've got to get to a point where, hey, even if you lose in the playoff like Georgia did, it doesn't hurt as much because you know every year you're going to be back in the thick of things.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at the catalyst of this kind of quote unquote Georgia, lack of a better word, dynasty, was 2017. Kirby Smart comes in, we catch lightning in a bottle, we make the national championship, and that just vaulted recruiting. I'm not saying Rutgers has to go on a Cinderella run to the championship game, but it takes one win, one upset in Columbus, one win against Penn State, one win against Oregon, for our recruits to start saying, okay, they're starting to build something here.
If Boise State can do it, if Arizona State can do it, why can't Rutgers?
Exactly. And I'm looking at a list of, kind of this Rutgers alumni who went to the NFL. Why is it so hard for Rutgers to get some of these guys to come advocate for the school? Isaiah Pacheco has won how many Super Bowls?
Ray Rice. His name is back in good faith now. He's best running back in Rutgers history. I mean,
I was going to kind of stay away from Ray Rice given the
my apologies.
But, but I mean, Gus Edwards, good running back. Bo Melton, Tyler Croft, Kenny Britt. You had Muhammad Sanu, Falcons legend.
Tom Savage.
So why can't Schiano get these guys to come in and tell recruits, hey, guys, we had pretty good careers. Look at us.
Gabe, what do you think? I mean, that's a great question.
I think, especially because I brought up Ray Rice earlier, back in good faith, he's in the New York area. He's been in Westchester County a bunch where I grew up. He's actually showed up to schools in Westchester County. He showed up before a track meet to give a pep talk to a women's track team. I forget which school off the top of my head. I think it was Nyack. So he's willing to do that. And Schiano, as poised and credited as he is, he could be making these connections. You're absolutely right, Ryan. I don't have an answer for why he isn't. My only thing I would say is I have experience in Michigan as a sports reporter, and reaching out to coaches, they don't respond. It could just be because they're in an older generation and they don't check their emails. Maybe, let alone thinking about reaching out. Unless you're a recruit, they're not game planning in a room saying, how can we get these guys in any sort of like unordinary way? They're just trying to reach out, and if they don't reach back, I just feel like Schiano's not going the extra mile with recruiting. And so I don't have an answer. It's more just, I guess I agree.
Yeah, and Mac and Ryan, let me ask you this question. So let's assume that you were applying to colleges and you got accepted into Harvard University and UCLA. What do you think the average applicant would choose between those two schools?
Harvard.
Okay. My point being, having gone to Bergen Catholic and being familiar with Northern New Jersey football, what these recruits think to themselves is the bright lights of Ohio State, of Georgia, are brighter than Rutgers. And that is why you have a lot of 3 stars going to Rutgers, but the elite talent often goes elsewhere. So how do you bridge that gap? I think you have to send the message that we're going to win now, but we're also building something special that you can be a part of. Otherwise, Rutgers is going to have a ceiling that maybe there'll be an 8-4 season, maybe a 9-3 season, but the standard has to be national championship. And to get there, they've got to take those steps. The first step is winning a big game against one of those teams from those bright lights in big cities.
Beating Big Ten games too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
no, you got it. You're good.
I mean, you're in the Big Ten. You're in one of the, a top 2 conference in the country, whether you want to rank them 1 or the SEC 1, doesn't matter. Players want to play in places where they can play big games. Rutgers is a place. You play the Ohio States, you play the Oregons, you play Michigan, you play Penn State. Sell that. Yep. It just seems Rutgers is kind of content just sitting in New Jersey, recruiting these 3 stars. Oh, Drew Aller just threw another pick at him, by the way.
Drew Aller. The game plan against Drew Aller is simple. Stand on the field. He'll throw it to you.
But it's just it almost seems Rutgers is just content being mid.
Yeah, and it's weird to accept being mid in the Big Ten. When's the last time they won the conference? Who the hell knows? I mean, if you're not going to win, it's kind of scary to think how many recruits will go to other schools within the conference, make their programs better, especially these 5-star recruits. And if everyone else, sure, I think we will be better next year. I've said it on this show multiple times, and 2026 is Adam's magical year. But the thing is, if everyone else is getting exponentially better, all of a sudden, what you see as getting better, you're going to get worse because you're not getting even better than your competition. So it's tough. It's easy to say going forward, if we have a better team, we can go 8-5, 9-4. But if everyone else is getting more skilled, better recruits, then what's stopping a team like Rutgers from having 3 wins, 4 wins? I mean, it's the staff and the belief, but it's like the range for wins with this program every year. It's between like 3 at the lowest and then 9 or 10. Like it's just so unpredictable.
Yeah. To answer your question, they won the conference one time, and it was 2012.
But outside of that, man, I mean, it's like said, top two conference.
You guys make some great points. Any last thoughts, Ryan Mack, from the great state of Georgia, where the peaches are better than any other state in the country? And when it snows in Georgia, people just can't handle it. But anyway, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up something that was less related to football and more related to coaching. Gabriel, I don't know how much of this show you have watched or how much of Adam you have gotten to consume, but there is something that he will not shut up about that he calls the process, and that embodies the coaching and the attitude and the people you're bringing into your program, and how your culture is going to be about winning. Referencing Nick Saban a lot, whole lot of Nick Saban admiring going on there. So what do you think about the culture? What do you think about the coaching? What direction do you see that going in for Rutgers?
Well, when it comes to the word process, I mean, I'm from New York, but I'm based in Philly now. That's all I hear. Maybe not so optimistically anymore, but since I've gotten here, it's all I've heard is that word. I agree with your take on that word, the process word. It does come down to the staff, and that's the one thing is the defense being completely new. It's a fresh start, sure, for the new recruits and transfers, but I think that with the new recruits and transfers, you have to start a new process almost on defense. The offense is solid. Shiano is a great selling point, and so is we can win a title 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. Do you want to be a part of it? But I mean, I agree with the concern that the staff is changing, the players are changing. So my thing is, I think it's a good culture. It's just a matter of the range of 3 to 10, I really couldn't answer how many games we will win. I'm optimistic, but with the culture change, and I keep bringing up that word I guess is my process word. It's really unpredictable. I'm optimistic about the culture and the process. 2 years time, maybe, because that's Adam's year. Next year, I think we'll be better, but who knows? That's, I can't predict it, but that's my take, I guess, with the process.
Yeah, and Mac, I'm going to tell you something that I've always, and Ryan, I'll tell you this. There's one thing, the hardest thing for any coach to do, any teacher to do, is to determine which athlete or which student has the intangibles. You can't teach people to be hungry. You can't teach them to want it more than anybody else. They just have to have it. And I think one of the ingredients here is getting those players who have that hunger, who don't need to be motivated by external factors, but want it more and will outwork people more than anybody else. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. It's impossible to teach, but it is necessary to have a championship team.
Yeah, and one last thing I'll say is Rutgers has the blueprint to do it. Problem is, I think Schiano's not the coach for it. I think you're going to have to go the route of a Indiana or a Syracuse if Rutgers wants to kickstart their program. It may be hard to hear for some long-term Rutgers fans, but I just don't think Coach Schiano is the coach who's going to do it.
Yeah, it's reasonable suspicion, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great point. Any last thoughts, guys? We appreciate you being on the show as always. Please call back in each week. We love hearing your intelligent comments, and it contributes greatly to the discussion. So we appreciate it, Ryan. We appreciate it, Mac. And we hope
for having us.
Yeah,
all right.
It was nice to meet you both, and the winning the conference thing, that was just a little hyperbole, but it was nice to meet you guys, and I mean, I hope we can win this conference again soon. I mean, I'm hungry for wins. I can't speak for the players' hunger though.
Well, you can only hope.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great stuff, guys. Hope to
Thanks.
see you again soon. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nice evening.
All right. So, before we end the show, Gabe, any last thoughts?
My final thought, I guess, I'm optimistic about this program. I think we have great quarterback, and we have a culture that is on the up. It's getting better, at least every year so far, it seems like, since Schiano's came aboard. And maybe he's not the coach that will win the championship game, but he's either a bridge coach or he is a coach that can do that. And that's not for either of us to decide at this moment. I would love to go the first take route and give a conclusive answer, but I cannot do that because I cannot predict it. But what I can say is this team has heart. The program the stock is increasing, and the players are getting better. The hunger that you talk about, it's getting more hungry. The appetite, the need for appetite is increasing. I love what I'm seeing out of this program, and I'm very excited for next year. Even if it is a bridge year, I'm still very excited.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you, and I love the optimism. And I agree with you. Whether Schiano's a transition coach or ultimately going to take us to the promised land, I think Rutgers is going in a very positive direction. And I'm proud of the players and the coaches for everything they've done to make Rutgers relevant again. And most importantly, I am thrilled to have you as a co-host because your insights, your analysis make this show immeasurably better. So I'm so glad that you've joined the channel. It's going to be a great off season, and it's going to be some great shows when the season starts. So just want to say thank you to you.
Of course, Jordan and Pippen are back. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, guys. So we'll see you next week, Monday at 7 p.m. at Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. Gabe and me are going to have breaking news, analysis, and all things Rutgers football. Thanks so much for being here.
Go Scarlet Knights, baby.
Go Scarlet Knights.